Have you ever heard of a man so allergic to other men that he couldn't even stay in the same room with them without breaking into hives? Sounds unbelievable, right? But that's exactly the life of Adrian Cross, billionaire CEO, media tycoon, and the most mysterious bachelor in the city for the last 30 years. They called him the untouchable king, because no man could ever get close to him. And then one single encounter in the middle of a rainy Tuesday afternoon changed everything. Stick with me until the end, because what happened next will melt your heart, and trust me, you won't see the twist coming. And hey, if you love stories that make you feel something deep inside, hit that like button and subscribe, because I've got more that'll stay with you for days. Adrian Cross's life had always been carefully controlled. From the outside, it was perfect, tailored suits, a penthouse that touched the clouds, private jets, and an empire worth billions. But inside, he carried a strange burden. Since childhood, his body reacted violently to the presence of men. A rare psychological allergic condition that left his skin red, his breathing shallow, and his heart pounding, not from attraction, but from sheer panic. Doctors told him it was a trauma-triggered hypersensitivity, possibly from an incident he never spoke about. For 3 decades, he had lived in a self-made world surrounded entirely by women, assistants, bodyguards, staff, never letting any man close enough to trigger the reaction. It was lonely, but safe. That all changed the day his private driver got sick, and the only available replacement from the agency was a man. The agency swore he was quiet, professional, and would keep his distance. But Adrian wasn't taking chances. He decided he'd call off his meeting and stay home. That's when the rainstorm hit. And as fate would have it, his penthouse garage elevator malfunctioned, forcing him to share a ride down with the very man he'd been avoiding. The elevator doors slid open and in stepped Daniel Hart, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like late summer skies after a storm. His clothes weren't polished like the corporate elite, instead, he wore a simple jacket, slightly worn at the edges. He carried an umbrella in one hand and a small backpack in the other. And there, tucked under his arm, was a crayon drawing of a smiling little girl holding hands with what looked like a soldier. Adrian braced for the itch, the heat, the panic, but nothing came. Just a strange, still calm. His chest didn't tighten. His skin didn't flare. For the first time in 30 years, he was standing next to a man and his body wasn't screaming to run. Daniel noticed Adrian's curious glance at the drawing and smiled, a slow, warm smile that seemed to break past every wall. "My daughter," he said softly. "She drew this for me last night. She's everything." They exchanged only a few words before the elevator jolted to a stop, trapping them between floors. Normally, Adrian would be clawing for the emergency button, desperate to escape. Instead, he found himself listening. Daniel talked about his years in the army, the friends he'd lost, and the injury that sent him home earlier than planned. He spoke about his late wife, the woman he thought he'd grow old with, taken by illness when their daughter was only 4. He talked about learning how to braid hair for school mornings, baking cupcakes for birthday parties, and holding his daughter's hand when she missed her mom too much to sleep. By the time the elevator finally restarted, Adrian had forgotten his fear. Something about Daniel's voice, steady yet vulnerable, had reached a part of him no one had touched in years. Days later, Adrian found himself calling the agency again, requesting Daniel as his driver. It was the first time he'd ever made such a request. Weeks passed, and the quiet car rides turned into conversations that lasted hours. Adrian learned about the little girl, Emma, and how she loved dinosaurs and bedtime stories. He learned about Daniel's struggle to find steady work while also being there for her. And slowly, Adrian began sharing his own guarded truths, the trauma he never spoke about, the day his father's violence had left him broken inside, the fear that kept him from trusting any man since. One evening, Adrian offered to join Daniel and Emma for dinner. He almost canceled at the last second, the old panic threatening to return, but when Emma looked up at him with a shy smile and asked if he liked dinosaurs too, his heart cracked wide open. From then on, the 3 of them became something. They went on park picnics, movie nights, and rainy day board games. Adrian found himself laughing more than he had in decades. But the real test came when Daniel's past came knocking. An old army buddy, homeless and struggling, reached out for help. Adrian froze, the old allergy threatening to take over, but this time, he didn't run. He stood beside Daniel, helped the man find shelter, and realized that healing wasn't about avoiding pain, it was about walking through it with someone you trusted. Months later, Adrian sat in a little community theater, watching Emma in her school play. When she spotted him in the crowd, she waved, not at Mr. Cross, the billionaire, but at the man who'd started showing up, rain or shine, just for her. That night, as they walked home under one umbrella, Daniel glanced at Adrian and said quietly, "I don't know how you did it, but you've become part of our family." Adrian smiled, no panic, no hives, just a warmth he never thought he'd feel. "Maybe I was just waiting for the right man," he said. And in that moment, he knew sometimes, the people who heal you aren't the ones you've been searching for. They're the ones fate drops into a broken elevator on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. The winter that followed was the coldest the city had seen in years. Snow draped itself over rooftops, traffic slowed to a crawl, and streetlights glowed like faint beacons in the early dark.